Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elevating Your Life. I am so happy to share with you a fantastic guest today. We have with us Angela Fowler. She is a popular coach, consultant, and speaker who shows organizations how to increase their bottom line by leveraging the power of accessibility to tap into the 2.1 trillion buying power of people with disabilities. As a businesswoman who is also totally blind, she has a unique insight into what it takes for regular, everyday businesses to tap into a market which they may not fully understand or readily think is available to them. With humor and straight talk tempered with patience, she shows organizations how to make the necessary adjustments, often with a lot less effort than they think. Angela's courses offer common sense, cost-effective solutions to help her businesses make their products and services accessible to people with disabilities and more user-friendly for everyone. And Angela, I'm so happy to have you join us today. I would love to begin with perhaps having you share a little more of your background and what triggered you to invest in and helping others and creating your reallifeaccess.com business.
Well, absolutely. So, as you heard, I am totally blind, have been all my life. And as such, I often encountered things that weren't accessible. And for a blind person, it's mostly websites. Built environments, wheelchair ramps, things like that aren't as impactful for us as they are for others. It's really a digital thing with us. So I'd come across these websites that were inaccessible, and I just got super frustrated. Like, what are you doing? And being part of a blindness advocacy movement, we really, and I don't think anybody did this intentionally, but we sort of created our own echo chamber of frustration when it comes to accessibility. And too often, accessibility is attributed to discrimination. But in 2021, I got a job that really changed my perspective on things. I got a job working with the Department of Veterans Affairs as a contractor for the VA. And my job was to teach their designers and developers how to make things accessible. So in doing that, I realized, most people want to do the right thing. Most people do. They just don't know what the right thing is. And even those who are initially resistant to accessibility, because in their mind, accessibility equals change, right? We have to change the way we do things. And people don't like change. Even if it's good change, people don't like it. Um, but once I showed them the why, and once I showed them how impactful accessibility truly is, they jumped on board with it immediately. So I came to realize, look, most people want to do the right thing. They just don't know what the right thing is. And I realized, instead of being frustrated, I want to be part of the solution. We have an education problem, not a discrimination problem, and I want to be the educator.
Ah, I love that. I love that. So educating and helping them realize what steps they can take, would you say?
Absolutely. And realize that really it's not sometimes it's seemingly small things like labeling things on your website, labeling links and buttons according to what they do, not their appearance, according to their purpose, not their appearance. I love it when I come across a menu button labeled hamburger. Extra pickles on mine, please.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Or it gets better because there's an icon. I'm not even sure what its function is, but it's called a chevron. Like, I don't even drive. What am I going to get gas for?
My goodness.
I can get my snacks and drinks somewhere else. I don't need to pay your prices. Come on, Chevron, come on.
My goodness, that is so funny.
But
Oh,
people that aren't, techies like me, and the people that aren't frankly smart Alex, might be genuinely confused as to what it is they just came across.
mhm. Yeah. What would you say makes you different from other accessibility experts? What
Well,
points
there's
are more of, what you offer?
it's a combination of two things. One, I have lived experience, and there's a lot of accessibility professionals with lived experience. But I take a pro-business approach. I'm not against business. I love business. Business is a good thing, and it's a good thing when business succeeds. And I don't think that when businesses are inaccessible, it's because of bad faith. I think they just don't know. And I believe that businesses truly benefit. You mentioned that $2.1 trillion buying power. Um, over 25% of the population has some sort of disability. Government statistics don't count seniors. So if you see a figure that's under 25%, they're probably not counting seniors, which is ridiculous, right?
Mhm.
I mean, come on.
There's a lot of seniors out there.
A lot of seniors, and seniors collectively have more assets than any other generation. So why the heck aren't we counting them? Um,
Good point.
so when you make your products and services easy to use, when you make them intuitive, you know, when you go for simplicity over all the bells and whistles that kids today like to attach to things, you're ultimately going to be more profitable.
Is
And of
that
course, it's beyond that, but those are basic things you can start with.
so? Would the simplicity be more profitable because it's simpler for others to understand and connect with?
If I go to your website and there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of distractions, there's things that flash and jump up and down, and there's just so many pictures and cute things that I can't find what I'm looking for. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna abandon it. If I go to a website and there's a clean, intuitive workflow that takes me through the buying process that you want me to go through, that if I want it, I'm probably gonna get it.
Yeah.
And I make my living with technology.
Yes. Yes. So what are the biggest features and benefits that they can create to put out more accessibility?
One of the big things that you can do is make sure that everything is accessible with the keyboard. Um, make sure everything's accessible, period. Make sure everything works. Um, I, Great story here. I was ordering a pizza one time, and my credit card had expired or something. I needed to put a new card in. And the expiration, where you enter in your expiration date,
Mm-hmm.
was really a rat's nest. I couldn't use it at all. And so I said, nobody's got time for this. So I handed it to my son and said, can you do this? It's completely inaccessible. And and he was 16 at the time. And he's the one that I go to when I have tech problems. So he's messing with this thing, and finally he goes, "This isn't even accessible to sighted people." And I asked him later, how often does this happen? How many times do I give you an inaccessible thing and you also have trouble with it? And he said 50 to 60% of the time. And if he says 50 to 60%, I mean, this kid builds computers for a living. If I can't get my computer to work, I call him, and I make a living getting computers to work, basically.
Mm-hmm.
If he's saying 50 to 60%, what of the average person?
Wow.
Now,
Yeah.
and it's people, oftentimes, what happens, I think, is people design for aesthetics first. And then they forget about user experience. So when you're designing something from a web page to a product to the way your products are laid out on the shelf, anything that you're putting together, think usability first and then add aesthetics on top of that.
So usability first.
Yep.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So when you talk about accessibility benefits everyone, is that saying the business owner, the customer, it just helps everyone have an
It
accessible.
does. It truly does. You know, it, but it's too often forgotten about.
And you're right. I mean, there can, you know, having a lot can kind of confuse or, make it difficult for someone, and that may cause them to leave a website.
Yep. People get impatient if they can't get what they want immediately. They give up and go somewhere else.
Yes, yes. So making it simple, but yet giving the good, important information that they need to draw them in, would you say, is a key step?
Yeah. Ask yourself how difficult, how easy can I use this on a bad day, you know, without having to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So what triggered you to offer coaching and consulting services over just kind of fixing something for someone? Instead of just fixing it for them, you offer them services and coaching so they can do it and continue to do well from then on.
Hmm. Teach you to fish, right? Teach you to fish, I feed you for life.
Yes,
Um, if I make your website accessible and you don't know the basic fundamentals of web accessibility, you're probably going to break it the first time I update it.
yes, yes. That is so true. That is so true. So by coaching and consulting, you are helping them to be better at that.
And it's a good investment for them, right? They're not they for one thing, we can discuss accessibility of everything. I tend to focus on websites when I'm doing these interviews. There's a couple reasons for that. As a blind person, websites impact us more than built environment stuff. And it's easy to talk about because that's where my background is. But physical accessibility, built environment accessibility is just as important. So is accessibility of your meetings. Um,
So
so is
accessibility of your meetings, what exactly would that be?
right. So for example, if you're giving a slide presentation, verbalizing the text on the slide, or at least verbalizing the pertinent information. If you have a chart, make sure that you don't have to see the chart to know what the point is. Speaking into the microphone, please.
Yes.
Enunciating. You know, I've been to a lot of presentations that I just couldn't hear
Mhm.
because not only was the person not speaking into the microphone, but they were kind of mumbling and not really using any sort of affect at all when they were speaking. So their words were kind of, no, that is not accessible speech. Um, captions for Zoom calls, just turn on the auto captions. They're not perfect, but if somebody's deaf, they're able to follow along with what's going on.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I imagine you have seen over the years how helping businesses invest in the accessibility, how it has really helped them in a return on their investment.
And sometimes it's tough to quantify. Um, but yeah, you do see less cart abandonment. You see, happier customers. It's a win-win all around.
Yes, yes. So, how have you branched out? How do you reach the groups of the disabled, veterans? I mean, they really are a group that I bet really benefits from your services.
Well, and when I worked for the contractor that worked on the Department of Veterans Affairs website, I assisted with a lot of studies on, we actually did user research with veterans with disabilities and those who use screen readers. And I was basically tech support, right? When things weren't working, because I was the only one that knew how to use a screen reader. So I'd step in and I'd walk them through things. And it was, to me, if you listen to those studies, you know how important accessibility is.
Mhm.
Um, if you conduct user research with people with disabilities, if you're a big enough business, you can afford to do that. Um, you know how important accessibility is, and you know how much better the user experience is for people with disabilities if things are accessible,
Mhm.
if they can use them, if they don't have to, you know, if they don't have to get sighted assistance, for example. And again, I'm using the blind example here because it's the easiest for me to. It comes to mind first.
Mhm.
um Blind bias. I have blind bias. But if I have to get sighted assistance to do something that should just take me 30 seconds to do, if I don't need it, I'm probably not going to do it, unless it's something I really want.
Mhm.
But if it's a casual thing, if I have to, sometimes it takes 10 minutes to do something that should really take 30 seconds.
Mhm. Yeah. And I would think giving accessibility, teaching that to businesses, and then, that can bring to them so much in business with people with disabilities, with, you know, veterans that need help. And just that accessibility makes a huge difference for them.
It's a matter of getting something done and not getting something done, oftentimes. You
Yeah.
know, I've got tax forms sitting on, the thing you got to sign to get your tax accountant to do your taxes.
Yes.
I've had those sitting on my table for a week because they're in print form, and I have to coordinate with my son to help me sign them. And every time we're in the same room at the same time, we both forget. If those had been accessible, it would have been done 2 weeks ago. And this is something I need to do. This is not an optional thing. I need to do this. But it just keeps getting put off because it's not accessible.
Yes.
So,
So what would
what if it
be
was
a
something I
step?
didn't need to do? What if it
Yeah.
was something, you know,
Any thoughts on what could make that more accessible?
I've asked him,
Hmm.
and I'm going to ask him again.
Yes. Yes.
But on the positive side, when you are accessible, when you have a reputation of being accessible, people with disabilities are going to recommend you. I don't know how many times I've seen something on Facebook that says, "Hey, does anybody know of an accessible, fill in the blank?" You want to be on one of those lists because it's not just the people that comment. People look at those lists and that aren't even, that didn't even comment on the post.
Yes.
We recommend to family and friends. And as I said before, accessibility equals usability.
Yes. Yes. It sure does. I can imagine the difference that makes. That is just so fantastic that you are coaching others and helping. And um, so share with someone when they go to your website, reallifeaccess.com. What can they learn and how do, and they can sign up for your assistance and your coaching through that?
Yeah, so I got a couple different coaching offers, one of which is an accessibility boot camp for business owners. I have a newsletter. I have a contact form. You can contact me directly. It talks about my services, talks a little bit about who I am, and it has all my social media. So yeah, go to www.reallifeaccess.com and you will find all the things.
I love it. I love it. Do you see yourself doing anything different in the future, or are pretty much what you're doing now is you finding that very fulfilling and happy with that?
What I'm doing now, I mean, it's necessary, and there's I think there's it's necessary for people with disabilities, and once people know how important it is, I think there's a genuine hunger for it out there. For common sense accessibility, not, be accessible or you'll get sued, but be accessible because this is a benefit to your business.
Yes, yes. And I would think that that accessibility aspect is a benefit to any type of business.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We could spend all day talking about the different types of accessibility and the different categories and how it applies to each business. It applies to your business.
Hmm. No,
Somehow, some way it does.
yes, yes. And just realizing that and, having that as a focus, I would think absolutely is going to make a huge difference in the following and, success.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, Angela, we're down to a few minutes left in the show. What last message do you want to leave with everyone? What do you want them to think about today as we say goodbye?
I've talked a lot about accessibility and how it has benefited people with disabilities. So I want to close with the following. When it comes to people with disabilities, we are a lot more capable and participatory in society than a lot of people think we are. We're your customers, we're your neighbors, we're your employees, and sometimes we're your boss. So it's not just about helping those poor disabled people over there. It's about empowering 25% of the population to use your goods and services. And more than that, because accessibility equals usability.
Yes, yes. And that 25% can make a big difference for a business.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I would think, make a big difference for those in the disabled category because they can now understand and partake in that business.
Yep.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah. That is just a beautiful goal and a beautiful mission. I just am really grateful for all the people that you have helped and businesses. Is there any particular um, consulting or speaking that has really touched your heart along this message? Or is it basically just have that accessibility?
Um, I like to look at access. It is a hard thing, but it's more a head thing, really. When you look at the numbers, I take a practical approach, I take a common sense approach. Um, the emotional approach usually doesn't come with practical advice.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Angela, this has been so fantastic. I'm just so happy you joined us today. I'm really grateful.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Love, hugs, and blessings. And to everybody out there, love, hugs, and blessings. Thank you for joining us today.